Felipe VI asks mother, Queen Emerita Sofia, to end secret affair. Madrid, the Spanish royal family is experiencing a new earthquake as leaked information from inside the Zarzuela palace said that King Felipe VI had a tense private conversation with his mother, Queen Emerita Sofia, asking her to end her relationship with Alfonso Diaz, the man who is said to have brought her the peace she had not found in her husband, former King Juan Carlos I, for decades of marriage. The marriage between Queen Sofia and Don Juan Carlos has long been the subject of heartbreaking stories behind the royal doors. According to those close to her, this was not simply a cold marriage but a long-lasting nightmare for Sofia. She could not hide her deep hatred for her husband, who had betrayed her many times with affairs, both public and secret, accompanied by disrespect and insults that caused her to fall into a long-term depression. For many years, the Emeritus Queen felt abandoned in her own home, trampled by those who should have stood by her. Her greatest enemy was none other than her husband, a close source shared. In the midst of her marital storm, Sofia found in Alfonso Diaz, the late husband of the Duchess of Alba, a rare source of comfort and respect. Journalist Pilar Air once described their relationship as an ideal love, no arguments, no pressure, just understanding, harmony and mutual respect. Although never made public, that feeling existed silently for many years, protected by absolute secrecy. However, according to recent revelations, it was King Felipe VI himself, who is considered the image and disciplinarian of the royal family, who asked his mother to end the relationship. A source in the palace said that Felipe was concerned that the revelation of this affair could cause a new scandal, affecting the already fragile reputation of the royal family after a series of uproars related to Don Juan Carlos. Felipe loves his mother very much, but as king, he must protect the royal family from anything that could cause harm, the source affirmed. Currently, Queen Emerita Sofia has not made any public response. But according to those who know her, the decision to end this relationship will be a huge blow to the spirit of a woman who has spent her whole life in an unhappy marriage, only to find a little comfort too late. And now is at risk of losing it. This story, if confirmed, will once again show that life behind the palace walls is not a fairy tale, but sometimes more tragic than the public can imagine. Felipe VI in the most difficult conversation with his mother, Queen Sofia's final sacrifice. Madrid, in a small room in the Zarzuela Palace, not far from the king's study, a private conversation took place on a sultry July afternoon. It was not a formal meeting, there were no secretaries taking notes, nor were there any servants present. Just the two of them, Felipe VI and his mother, Queen Emerita Sofia, sat facing each other, in a space filled with silence. Felipe had prepared for this moment many times, but no script could have made it easier for him to say what came next. He knew that he was not just a son, but also the King of Spain, the man charged with preserving the image of the royal family in an age when any slip-up could explode into a public crisis. "Mother, I need you to do something for the royal family. And for yourself," Felipe began, his voice calm but his eyes heavy with worry. Behind Sofia's calm demeanor, a flicker of surprise passed. She had long sensed that this day would come. For years, her secret relationship with Alfonso Diaz, the man who gave her respect and peace, had been carefully guarded as a family secret. But secrets, no matter how carefully kept, always ran the risk of being exposed. A loveless marriage. To understand the gravity of this moment, one must go back decades, to 1962, when Princess Sofia of Greece and Denmark married Prince Juan Carlos of Spain. It was a marriage arranged for political and royal gain, not love. Even in the early years, the cracks were evident. Juan Carlos, with his charming but free-spirited demeanor, was soon involved in several extramarital affairs. These affairs were no longer mere gossip in high society, they were discussed in the corridors of power, sometimes even hinted at in the press. According to a former royal advisor, Sofia endured public humiliations when her husband openly flirted with other women even at official events. She learned to keep a straight face, but inside there was a constant pain, the person recalled. Abandoned in the midst of a splendid palace. The pain lasted for decades. Sofia, who valued family and duty, chose to remain silent, not because she was weak, but because she believed that protecting the stability of the royal family was more important than her own needs. But this silence meant she suffered alone. She once confided to an old friend in Athens, "In this vast palace, I feel like a temporary guest." In contrast to her husband's image as a dissolute person, Sofia kept a simple lifestyle, avoided scandals, and always appeared dignified in public. But behind closed doors, she lived in a world where the coldness did not come from the climate, but from the heart of her partner. Meeting Alfonso Diaz, the light at the end of the tunnel. Around the early 2000s, fate brought Sofia to meet Alfonso Diaz, a gentleman who had been with the Duchess of Alba until her death. Alfonso was not born into luxury, but he understood the value of loyalty and respect. According to journalist Pierre, the relationship between Sofia and Alfonso was like an autumn song, gentle, deep, quiet but warm. They shared long conversations about art, history, and even their own past wounds. There was no jealousy or quarreling. No pressure of power. Just two people finding comfort in each other, even though they both knew that, due to circumstances, their love would never be made public. Felipe VI, between filial love and royal duty. For Felipe, this relationship put him in a difficult position. As a son, he understood what his mother had endured. He also knew that Alfonso was not a threat to the family happiness, because that happiness, between Sofia and Juan Carlos, had long been an empty concept. But as king, Felipe could not ignore the risk of scandal. Recently, the Spanish media has increasingly delved into the private lives of the royal family, especially after investigations into Juan Carlos' finances and private life. Just one photo, one leak, and the relationship between Sofia and Alfonso would become a sensational headline on the front page. A former palace employee revealed, Felipe did not blame his mother, but he was forced to think about the safety of the royal family. In that meeting, he made it very clear that sometimes love must be sacrificed for duty. The decisive moment. Sofia was silent for a long time after hearing her son's words. There was a deep sadness in her eyes, the sadness of a woman who had devoted her life to honor and duty, and now had to give up her last little piece of happiness. She understood that Felipe was not speaking as a forbidding person, but as a son trying to protect his mother from the storm of public opinion. But understanding was one thing, accepting was another. A close source said that a few days after the conversation, Sofia called Alfonso. The call lasted less than 10 minutes, there were no tears, no reproaches. Just two elders talking to each other with respect and gratitude. Then, as if by a silent promise, they would keep the beautiful memory, instead of destroying it with public noise. The curtain closed. Today, Sofia still appears regularly at royal events, still keeping a calm smile. But those who knew her noticed a void in her eyes. The story of Alfonso was never mentioned publicly, but in the quiet corridors of Zarzuela, people whispered that it was the only love in which she ever felt truly loved. Perhaps, for a queen, personal happiness is always a luxury. And when history is written about Sofia, people will remember her not only as a wife who endured a harsh marriage, but also as a mother who sacrificed her happiness to protect the throne for her son.